The new album is Higher Power, your fourth solo album, coming on March 15th. Title track and first release from the new album states, the day I died is the day I came back to life. It really sets the tone for the album, loaded with what appear to be some very passionate works. Is this your most introspective, or is it the most convicted? I've got conviction album from your four solo albums.
Um, you know, they all did. In fact, that's the only way I know how to write, is from that place. Each one I think is a snapshot in time of a period of time in my life. It's a journey, it's a diary, it's a journal. And this one I think was probably the most difficult to make out of all the solo records. I was going through quite a lot, and I played that out in terms of the songs and the narrative of the songs. But it was important for me to kind of book in the record with what was helping me get through everything I talked about in the songs on the record, and then what I hope to end up with when all is said and done. And that's that I don't have to carry the weight of the world. There's something bigger that can do that for me. You know what I mean?
Well, Scott, you've had some very well documented personal struggles, yet you pulled through them with clarity, appreciation, sincerity. What is it that keeps you centered and your moral compass straight these days?
Well, I tell you, as long as I'm sober and keep my spiritual life in the right place and keep my connection with God in the right place, good things happen. As soon as I get off kilt from that, I go right back. You know what I mean? And so I'm still a work in progress. I'm still taking it 24 hours at a time, but I know what I've got the key to unlock the door to keeping me in this place. It's just a matter of consistently staying on path and consistently, like I said, maintaining my spiritual condition and my connection with God. Because when I'm in that place, good things happen.
You got 207,000 followers on Instagram, and on 125, you treated them all to an outstanding song, Dead Man's Trigger. Now, the imagery
Yeah.
is Old West, but the lyrics with lines like, it's not hate, the truth is bitter, sound like there could be a single incident that led up to this metaphor.
I think there's quite a lot of incidences over the years that led up to this metaphor, but I think the true essence of that song is that when you're living your life not trying to please man and not trying to please people, you don't fear man, you don't fear people, and so it's not a threat, even though it comes across that way. It's more it more so has a spiritual undertone in that when you're connected and trying to live a life where you're trying your best, although we fail, to do right in the eyes of God, then you don't fear man. And I think that that's the ultimate message. But you could take that metaphor and apply it to a lot of various things that happen. I think all of us have times in our life where we feel backed into a corner and we're like, hey, if you go there, then I'm going to have to go there. And that's not going to be good for either of us. And so there's a spiritual component, and then there's a reality component. And so the song definitely encompasses the two. But the way I feel it, though, and want it to live on, is that spiritual meaning, because that's the core. We don't have to live in fear. But we do, on the literal sense and in the reality of the world, sometimes have to stand up for ourselves if we're backed into a corner.
That seems to be an underlying theme of the three songs you've written. There's some kind of spiritual metaphor because Black Butterfly from the end of November, lines are build a wall just to break it down, born to fight, born to run with lions. It's again, this album just there's an energy in this album unlike the previous three.
Yeah. Well, each song was written during a specific period of time where the song in its essence was being lived out in that moment. And so I would go into the studio with whatever was going on in my life, whatever realization, epiphany, experience, emotion, and then just channel that into the music. And so, that song Black Butterfly is indicative of a very transformative experience, and someone going through a personal transformation, kind of, the scales falling off the eyes, and also the shedding of skin, and the removal of things in your life, an internal and external rebirth, if you will, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, as well as our physical view, and our literal view of the world. And so, yeah, I was definitely going through that, and I'm still in transit, uh, in part of that metamorphosis, as we, speak today.
I found it amusing that when I saw that If These Walls Could Talk features the artist Dorothy, and she's also
Yeah.
credited as appearing on a couple of other places to a smaller scale, because not the size of the spotlight that was on you during the Creed heyday and then shortly after, but
Yeah.
on a smaller scale, Dorothy kind of parallels the same struggles and turnaround you went through. What brought you two together?
Well, it was happened to be playing at the same event. I was doing a show. Chris Daughtry and I were doing a festival, and Dorothy was the opener. And I was looking, being having been a Nashville resident now and a Nashvilleian for over 7 years, I had the country bug in me. So when I initially wrote the song with Scott Stevens, Marty Fredrickson, and a girl named Kaylee, uh, I initially thought, what, this maybe this is going to be. I knew it needed a female vocal, and so I thought maybe this is going to be my song that crosses over into the country genre. So I initially kind of was going out and meeting with country female vocalists, and I went out and met Alexandra Kay, this just extremely gifted and talented singer and songwriter in the country realm, and met with her. She did a video that went viral on TikTok doing a Creed compilation. That's how I became aware of her as an artist. And so, I explored that, and then spoke with my management about another country artist, and Lainey Wilson came up, and then she had just done a duet with Hardy and Jelly Roll, so it kind of ruled out that one. And so I was kind of in flux and kind of didn't know which direction I was going to go, and happened to be at that show. And we went out and watched two or three of her songs, and I knew the moment that I heard her voice, that's the voice I need on this track. And so, ironically, we share the same producer, Scott Stevens and Marty Fredrickson. And so she was in the studio with Scott Stevens, and I texted him or called him and said, "Hey, man, play Dorothy the track, and see if she's into it, and if she likes it, if she'd be open to sing on the track." And so he said, "Gotcha," played it for her, and then either texted me or emailed me back. She's in tears, man. She totally connected with the song. She's in. And so I just sat back and waited for the recording to get emailed to me, and I heard it, and I just knew it. Goosebump moment. Knew it was the right choice, and excited to share that with the world here soon.
Well, I got to tell you something shared with the world. Just before we got on here together, I got an email that had the release of the Paramount Plus TV commercial for the Super Bowl
Yeah,
with
yeah,
a quarterback moral dilemma between Dolphin star Tua and Sir Patrick Stewart. And on the soundtrack, there's Scott Stapp and Mark Tremonti playing Creed's Higher. There
yeah,
you
man.
go. Right back into the spotlight on one of the biggest spotlights in American culture on any given year.
Man, what an experience. It again, it was kind of like the Rangers situation. It kind of came out of nowhere. And so excited to be a part with all those incredible people that you named, as well as Drew Barrymore.
Peppa
What an
Pig.
incredible, yeah, Peppa Pig. Can't leave out the cartoon characters. But it was an incredible experience, and honored to be a part of it, and just so honored that they chose Higher to use for the soundtrack for the commercial, and the theme. of the commercial. And I think my favorite part is when Sir Patrick Stewart says, "Creed me." It was a lot of fun, and a lot of incredible people, went into making that, and they were all incredible to Mark and I.
So you're going to get somebody's got to be demanding your work this baseball season because they want to recreate the magic that was captured in the Rangers. Who's any team reached out to you yet early on free agent signing? Come here.
Hey, not yet. And I think, man, I think with what the Rangers did, I think they've made me at least a Rangers fan. I had kind of gotten away from following baseball like I did years ago, and felt a real connection with the team and the players through that entire experience. And so, I've always been a lifelong Dallas Cowboy fan, and the Rangers being right there in Arlington and in the greater Dallas area, it just makes sense for me. So, Rangers, here we are. I'm excited to be a Rangers fan. I'm jumping on the train, man.
Yeah, it kind of kills me when you bring up the Nashville thing. Every time I see on social media you in a Predators jersey, me being a Blackhawks fan. But you live there, you live there, and they do
You
let you
gotta,
have
you got,
fun with it.
you got to support the local teams. And it's a great experience and opportunity to take the kids out for a good night. Watching some hockey or watching, excuse me, a Titans game or something. So, got to support our local teams too.
So the kids getting into hockey, are they playing youth hockey?
Oh,
Have you done that?
they're not, but they love to go to the games, and so they play other sports, baseball, basketball. My daughter plays tennis. My little guy is playing basketball. He played baseball, and now he's getting into golf. So letting them find their niche.
Well, should they become interested in youth hockey, just so you know, it's one of the most expensive sports for parents. So it's a good thing you're going out on tour starting on March 10th because you got to make some money to pay for that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I went through a little bit of that with travel baseball. That was a very time consuming and expensive experience, but an incredible experience. And glad I got to do that with my son Daniel.
What's going to make this tour that starts up on March 10th different from the previous solo tours you've had?
I think on this particular tour, I'm really going to put an emphasis on playing more solo songs than I've ever done. The fans have really made it clear to me that they want to hear more off my other records. And so, I'll be playing a lot of songs off, the new record, of course, Higher Power, but I'm also going to, dig deep and go pull some of the fan favorites off my first three solo records. So I think that's what's really going to separate this tour from the previous, because before, I'd play eight or, 7 or 8 songs off whatever the new current solo record was, and then do the rest Creed songs because Creed wasn't on tour. And so with Creed being on tour, the fans are going to get the Creed need met, with Creed. And so that kind of opens the door for me to kind of do what I've always really wanted to do, or do more of. But I'm still going to play 3 or 4 of the songs that I know that the fans want to hear when they come see me. It's just like if I went to see Bono doing a solo show, he could play all his solo music, but I would still want to hear Where the Streets Have No Name, With or Without You, the 3, 4 core U2 songs that every U2 fan has to hear. You know, when they go to a U2 show, I'd still want to hear it. And I think the Creed fans are the same way.
What's interesting about the Creed tour discussion, the fact that with no new Creed music coming and the first 3 songs from Higher Power we've heard, they sound more like vintage Creed than anything on your last 3 albums. It's like you've reconnected with that power in your voice and presence.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did. I definitely kind of got back to my roots. Of course, Higher Power has a much more modern, progressive style and element to it, and that's what my co-writer and producer on that track, Scott Stevens, brings to the table when you create with him. And I love that about him. Keeps it fresh, exciting, and current. But on the other tracks, I really kind of wanted to just get back into. Of course, it's a heavier album. I think fans will be surprised when they hear that I do have, 3 or 4 really stripped down, acoustic songs on this record. But aside from that, I kind of went heavy and did reconnect with kind of that riff driven rock and roll and vocal that they're familiar with.
Well, one thing about the Creed cruise, Creed shows, the live shows, it's going to be the first time in 10 years. Is it going to
Yeah.
be, and we're looking into a crystal ball here because I'm asking you to tell me how you're going to feel and you're not there yet. But is it going to be more a matter of relief or regret? Relief that it's happened or regret that it took that long to happen?
Well, it's interesting as part of this journey that I've been on in life, and in becoming a better human, and life in recovery, and trying to live a life of sobriety. You learn that you can't live in regret. You know, but in honesty with you, of course I regret. Of course I wish that we had continued to at least throw Creed a bone over the last 10 years and do something, every other year. I felt that since, the day that we initially broke up years and years ago, back in like 2004. But I can't live in that moment. I'm just going to be excited and grateful that we're getting the chance to do it now. And I think it's also going to be a lot like just putting on an old baseball glove, like putting on that baseball glove you played with, for all the baseball players out there that you played with, when you were in junior high and high school. It's just it's like riding a bike when we're together. It just gets right back to what we do. And I think the music is what holds it all together. And so I'm excited for that, and it's going to be a good time.
Well, I remember specifically the first time I ever saw Creed play. You had just been two songs in, and you were playing for the radio station in San Antonio. We had booked you to be under Foo Fighters, who were headlining in the Sunken
Yeah.
Garden Theater. And Foo Fighters management came back to
Was
us and
that it?
said,
Was that in 98? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Was that in
no,
98?
the
Okay.
90s, it's like right at the
97 or
start.
98?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's just like one of those moments where Foo Fighters management goes, they prefer not to close shows, radio shows. They didn't want to close radio festivals at that time.
Right. Right.
And we're talking, the group of us talking about, well, what are we going to do? And it was like, look, I got a feeling about this band Creed. They seem to have really some kind of persona presence going for them. And you guys came out and nobody left. Now, I know looking in
Yeah.
retrospect, it's like, oh, no kidding, it's Creed. But at that time, that's a big risk to take.
Yeah, you know what? I don't even think we thought about it at that time. We were so just zoned in, and I've never looked at rock and roll music and playing on festivals and playing with other bands. I've never looked at it as a competition. I've just looked at it like we're going to go do what we do, and we want everyone on that bill to do what they do at the best that they can, because fans love a variety of music. They just love good songs and solid performances. And so, fortunately, at that point in time, I didn't think about it. Now, today, if I was to follow the Foo Fighters, uh, I think I'd have a lot more butterflies today, as they're such an incredible, legendary band who put on such incredible, just mind blowing performances, and Dave and the band are such amazing entertainers as well. That'd be a tough act to follow. So I think I'd have more butterflies today than I did when I was 25.
I think the only time I've seen you nervous recently is last time you were here in El Paso. We were at Star City Studios, and I was carrying the microphone around, and fans were asking you a question, and you just put this just very, very personal, heartfelt performance on and won everybody's hearts again. But at one point I asked you a question about what's going on with the kids these days, what's got your focus, and you said, Baby Shark. And with a little prodding and begging, you actually did a little snippet of Baby Shark, and they adored you for doing that. Is there any oddball song you're forced to hear these days that's the ghost in your head?
I tell you what, it's funny you bring that up. My little guy, my 6-year-old Anthony, I have got a surprise remix of Higher that I don't know where it's going to find its home, uh, but I'm sure it will here soon. But right now, it's just been kind of a song that I played for him one time in the car, and from the moment he heard it, for an entire year, about an entire year, all he wanted to hear every time on his way home from school, to school, on his way to his, doctor's appointments, his tutoring lessons, his baseball practice, basketball practice. I got to hear, Daddy, put on higher, not the rock one, the new one, not the rock one, the new one. And as soon as it's over, I want to hear it again. I want to hear it again. And so, it's been a loop of higher prior to the higher madness. That's what's so funny about all this is that was just a daddy son truck remix that turned into something that the rest of the world was connected to. So I hope they get a chance to hear this remix I'm sitting on at some point, because it's kind of a really got a global appeal that I'm excited to share with everybody.
Hope. You're Scott Stapp. I think you can do whatever you want at this point in your career.
Well, waiting for the right placement.
Waiting. Okay. Higher Power. When that album comes out and fans have a chance to hear it, I'm going to guess there's going to be a whole lot of critical acclaim that will say one of the things I commented to you a little while ago, and that is this sounds like vintage Creed. Do you ever see any of these songs being played on a Creed stage?
I don't know. That's a conversation that Mark and I have never had. Um, and who knows? I think we're all in such a good place. I know we want to focus on the songs that we've done together, but who knows? I'm open to anything, and I can't share the details and won't ever share the details of conversations that Mark and I have had. But we have definitely had a conversation about our other projects, our other bands, material, finding their way into Creed sets. I mean, nothing was. It was just an off the wall, kind of not a serious conversation, just kind of an in passing. So I don't want this to like go viral on the internet and people start thinking that, oh my God, Scott said they're going to play this, and that from their other projects. No,
Yeah.
that's not what this is. But there was an in passing, just like throwing something up in the air, like, oh, it'd be interesting, and just we moved on from there. But I can tell you now, the answer is no.
Hey, I'm gonna
With that tremendous lead up.
I'm gonna plant a bug. I'm gonna plant a bug because I want responsibility for this.
All right.
Someday, Scott Stapp, Mark Tremonti, Scott Stapp, Alter Bridge out together, 2 sets, and then you guys on stage doing your Creed stuff. Wow, what a tour that would be with 2 different sets of music bases to pull from. That would just be like the ultimate. If I'm a Stapp Tremonti fan, that would be the coolest event ever.
I can't share with you details, but
Fair enough.
but great minds think alike, my friend.
Fair enough. Now, I'm going to break a rule of video interviews because I didn't think about this till we were talking about something. I'm going to step over for about 3 seconds and pick something off my wall.
All right.
And I'll be there in 1, 2, well, actually, reverse. 3, 2, 1. Okay. This is on my wall because it's a great story. It's a very significant moment. It's San Antonio, Texas. In 2000, I want to
Wow.
say 2 or 3. I'm trying to remember
That
which
would be
tour.
that would be the weathered tour.
Yes.
And so that would be probably 2002, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also summertime. So that's why I'm thinking it was on that leg, not the
Yeah.
fall winter leg. But what
Yeah.
happened that makes that so
Might have
significant?
been 2003. You're right.
What makes that so significant is your TM comes up to me toward the end of the set and goes, Scott wants to talk to you. I said, oh, okay. So I'm thinking we're going backstage. Instead, we went back to your bus. and we were there for a few hours, and you had so many questions. I think at one point I thought, Jesus, is he ever going to shut up? But you just had
I
so
think a
many
lot of
questions.
I think back in the day, a lot of people probably said that. I was quite the habitual talker.
But your questions were all about, so with your experience in rock radio, if somebody was to go from a band like I do, so solo, what's the odds? What do you think? Where's the music go? We just had this long discussion about, and I remember the first thought to my mind is, I know it's not going to last forever. Nothing ever does. But man, is he going to go solo sooner than later? But I think that may have been because some of the things you were talking about were song concepts that didn't quite fit Creed at the time. And,
Right,
and it's just like, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's not only thinking about the next Creed date, the next Creed album, or if you were, but he's also thinking about a different musical operation. And you wouldn't be the first lead singer that did something separately or as a
right,
side project.
right.
Looking back, what would you have done differently when you splintered off and did your own solo stuff? Or is it just too valuable a footprint through the journey?
You know, um, I mean, the biggest thing that I would change throughout my entire career is never let the partying get a hold of me, because that altered the course of everything. I think the whole narrative of Creed and what happened with Creed would have been more in line of a kind of a Metallica story. Not saying that we're in that league, but just in terms of the band, never having its separate moments. But then again, in saying that, then all the incredible music that has come from Tremonti, that has come from Alter Bridge, and that has come from my solo work never would have been created. So, it's like a double-edged sword. And so, yes, of course, if I could go back and change things, I think I would have, you know, uh, listened and heard. I just wasn't emotionally and had the maturity to hear and have the foresight. I was wrapped up in and had the claws of all the partying of rock and roll in me. But if I could go back and change something, I would definitely eliminate that, even in terms of how that rolled through into my solo. You know what I mean? So that would be the biggest thing. And if I could pass that on to younger artists, is think of the long term, and get a hold of that and realize the gift and the opportunity that you have being a professional musician. And look at it akin to someone who has a 9 to 5, has to show up, has to be present, has to do their thing 5 6 days a week, blow off some steam. If you can handle it, and it doesn't become an addiction or damage your life, blow off some steam one day on your day off, and then get right back on the healthy routine, and walk the straight and narrow to preserve your health, your life, and your career. And so that would be what I would pass on at this stage in my life.
Wisdom from a man who's taken the path and been there himself. So there's
Yeah.
the great advice for young rockers everywhere. Well, Scott, I can honestly say that throughout our numerous encounters over many, many years, you've never been a jerk to me. So that's part of the reason I'm still a fan. It's like it's not like that. At least I haven't seen it, fortunately. But
Yeah, man.
I'm so pleased with where you've taken everything and what you're doing now. And it's just, as a fan, it's one of those satisfactory moments where you say, I didn't give up on the guy, and I'm glad he justified the faith. And welcome back
Thank
to
you,
Rock
man.
Radio in Force and Creed. Whoa. All right. We'll tell Mr. Tyson that I expect my airline ticket for that first
Yeah, exactly.
tour.
And I was going to comment after you said that. My dad used to tell me, "Don't believe anything you hear and half of what you read." And so base all your experiences and all your the way you look at somebody on your personal experience, not anything you hear.
Scott Stapp, much appreciated as always.
Yeah,
Good
man.
luck.
Yeah,
We
man.
got you got a lot going on, dude. So I
Yeah, you're right. Tons.
hope it all pays off for you in the way you want it to.
Man, I just want to have a good time. be happy, stay healthy and strong, and deliver every night for the fans. And the other incredible part is my kids are at such a great age. My daughter's 17, Daniel's 13. Now Anthony is young; he's 6, so his memories of this whole upcoming year, he won't remember it as much 10 years from now. But I know that my son Daniel and my daughter Milan and Jagger, who's 25, and I'm a grandfather now. And so to a baby Cash. So for them to get to experience this now being older is so important to me. And so that's what makes it all worthwhile.